Hello and welcome back to the Mystic in Training podcast with me, your host, Melissa Amos. I am just back from beautiful, mystical Scotland, a land that I have been drawn to for a very long time. After spending 5 days on a gorgeous retreat in mystical, magical Findhorn. If you don't know Findhorn, it is a spiritual community. The story is incredible. Maybe we'll speak about it another time, but it is known for its very incredible experiences. And I will say, having been there twice, the land is magical and many magical things happen when we are there. For me, I was on a retreat and I had spent 4 days immersed in the topic called Mystic Prophet Activist with Holly and Robert Holden. And as you may infer from the title, it really was about us dropping into what it means to be a modern day mystic, what to do with that message as it comes through, and then how do we live a life like this? Now, I had many experiences over the few days, and I'm sure we will cover them over the next few episodes. But I wanted to tell you today about the one that like literally blew my mind. So buckle in. At the end of the 4 days, I was walking back to the luggage drop where I'd left my cases, and I could feel something in my leg, like in my trousers. Now, picture the scene. I was wearing green jeggings. So they are like skin tight and long. And I'm like, what on earth is this in my leg? And it felt like a stick or something. I was very confused. And I walked to the luggage drop, and the lady that worked there, Kat, was there. And I was like, hold on a minute. I start rolling up my legs. I've got something in my trousers. Rolled up my legs, pulled out an 8-inch feather. The look on my face as my jaw just dropped. She's looking at me like, what on earth? I swore. Um, so that's how profound it was. And I was like, what? How did this feather get inside my trousers? It was literally the tip of it was at my knee, and the base of it went down my calf, and it took up like half my leg, half of the bottom half of my leg. And I looked at Kat and I was like, what? And she just looked at me and she said, well, this is exactly the sort of thing that happens at Findhorn. Like that explained anything. I was I was shocked. I was perplexed. I was in awe. I was like, oh my God. I was like, Angel of Findhorn, touche. Very well played. Because there's something that I probably should address. As somebody who does what I do and is really in communication with the invisible world, who believes that the world is one giant oracle card, I am actually pretty cynical at heart. And whilst I have lots of mini mystical experiences happen to me, and my friends are often exclaiming to me, like, Mel, why do these things keep happening to you? There are times where I fall into doubt. There are times where I'm like, well, that could have just been. And even though I don't believe in coincidences, I don't know if it's like the science mind of mine or the inner cynic that lives, but there's this part of me that sometimes just wants a bit more proof. I understand as a as a psychotherapist and somebody who's really interested in how the brain works, that we do have confirmation bias, that we are as humans meaning makers. And so I genuinely ask myself when I'm walking around and I see all these things and I'm like, oh my God, look, there's a magpie when I'm talking about something, or, the kind of little things that happen. I just wonder if I am making meaning. And sometimes when I'm telling my friends, especially the kind of less spiritual ones, I think, do they just think I'm mad? I'm definitely an open-minded cynic. I know that the universe is speaking with me, but sometimes I want more proof. I'm going to give you an example. I remember last year I was also at Findhorn. Now, Findhorn was founded on a big booming voice in the sky, right? Eileen Caddy, who founded Findhorn, did so after hearing, in her words, the voice of God tell her to go and start up this community in this sand dune, essentially in the Highlands. And she did, and now it is a really incredible, thriving place. Last year, I'd spent 5 days with Michael Neal and Robert Holden on a retreat called Becoming Yourself. So again, I'd had some incredible moments in there, but it was on one of the final days. I was in the sanctuary. I wanted the thing, right? I didn't want another feather. I didn't want another goosebumps. I didn't want another thing that I could put down to coincidence. I wanted the experience. I wanted the voice on megaphone out of the sky. I wanted the full PowerPoint presentation of, hello, I am spirit and I am here. I wanted the apparition of the angel to appear in front of me because, sometimes you just need the confirmation. And as I was in the sanctuary, scribbling in my book, probably looking like I was having the most beautiful downloaded message from God, what was really happening was I was throwing a hissy fit, asking where God was and whether or not he's ever going to make himself known to me. Which, when I say this out loud, I do realize how ridiculous it sounds, considering everything. And what I received back, which was very infuriating, was, Melissa, it doesn't work like that. And I realized that my way of experiencing the divine, considering I've been doing this for so long, and considering, oh, let me tell you this, the very first time that I experienced a definite sign from my guide, should we say, years and years ago, I was sitting in my garden and I was reading a book, and in the book it said, if you want to hear from your spirit guides, just sit there and say, spirit guides, make yourself known to me, and if you're here, send me a sign that's so big that there's no doubt it's you, something like that. And so I said it out loud. I was on my own in the house, and minutes later, the radio in the upstairs spare bedroom that no one ever used came on full blast, shook the whole house. I ran upstairs. My heart was beating through my mouth and I was terrified. I turned it off. I wish that now I remembered what song was on. It was probably Must Be Talking to an Angel. And I remember saying, yeah, that was too scary. Don't do it like that again. And that was probably in 2008, 2009. So they listened. But still, every now and then, when I have spiritual teachers and people that I've spoken to that have had such irrefutable evidence that day, after being on this magical place for so long, I was desperate for this sign. And my guidance team so gently and annoyingly told me, well, that's not how it works. And that part of my journey is really moving into faith. Now, I thank Spirit for these crazy and pretty unbelievable experiences. That feather in my leg was beyond physics. That feather in my leg, there's no way it could have gone there. I hadn't been anywhere that it could have got, like, it just did not make sense. And maybe I needed that in the moment. But it got me thinking about how we experience the divine. And I realized that many of us are waiting for these extraordinary experiences to happen, when actually it's in the extraordinary moments that we really begin to understand how magical life is, how we are in constant communication with the universe, with the divine. Even yesterday, I was with a friend at the Ned in London, and we were having some great conversations about life and work, and we were co-working together. And at one point I was telling her about a new idea and the new direction that I'm taking Soul Space, my membership in, and how excited I am about it. And just as I kind of finished the idea, the whole room burst into applause. And I laughed, and she was like, "What are they clapping at?" I was like, "They're clearly clapping at my idea. This is the universe like going, yep, Melissa, well done." And then even like just a few minutes later, we were talking about how in the coaching space, the knives had been coming out in certain areas. And just as we're talking about that, the couple next to us dropped their knife on the floor, and it draws our attention. And I'm like, yeah, maybe we should move on from this subject. Like, the knives are out, right? And we have these moments that give us the goosebumps. We have these times when the feather just appears, like not necessarily in your trousers, right? That the other week when I was recording the podcast and I was talking about the magpies, and then a magpie came and like literally like pecked at my door. There's these teeny tiny moments which, when I was on retreat, Holly gave me a new name for it. She called it micro mysticism. And I love that term because for a long while I have believed that the world is a giant oracle card. What I mean by that is that everywhere we look and everywhere we turn, there are signs, there are moments, there are messages in nature, in the people around us, in the circumstances that I find myself in. And it's often in these little moments, like the other day I was leaving a voice note for one of my friends, and a car came past with a number plate with their name on it. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like these little tiny moments that show us that the universe is always responding, and that we are always creating, and that there's this divine order, if you like. And our job, I think, is to step in line with that, to have that dance with these cosmic forces. And when we're doing that, there's constantly this stream of inspiration, message, evidence that you're not alone. It can be quite enticing, shall we say, to want to collect these signs, to want to have the big, massive moments. And as you've heard, I'm not immune to them. I wonder if this, to be a mystic in training, isn't about how many signs we collect. It's about becoming the person who notices this. It's about us knowing that as we are walking around, as I did with my friends yesterday, that when the room bursts into random applause, that not only are they applauding whatever it is that's going on, but the and is the universe is showing me something too. Because could the feather have blown in from somewhere? Possibly, maybe. But I'm not sure that's the point. Because the feather could have possibly blown in from somewhere, maybe, and it can also be that sign of reassurance. It can also be that moment of awe. It can also be that recognition of, okay, I'm not alone. It can also be that comfort that we are seeking, or that assurance that, yes, I'm on the right path. And does that mean that every sign is a sign? Or that every single thing that happens is something that we need to analyze and listen to and take action from? Not necessarily. But when we walk through life knowing that our actions, our thoughts, our desires, our hopes, our dreams, our challenges are being, if you like, witnessed by a power higher than us, and that the more present we are, and I don't think it's a coincidence that there's so many spiritual traditions that speak about being present, that we notice these things that many people wouldn't. And that as we notice them, we notice what our body is doing. How many times have you spoken to a friend and they've told you something, or they've had an idea and you get that feeling of goosebumps? For me, that's something to pay attention to. How many times have you been walking around with a question in your mind and you hear a song on the radio, or you go past a billboard, or you overhear a conversation which answers that question pretty directly? Like once when I was walking to school and I was thinking about my connection, maybe another one of my hissy fits with the universe, and I was like, well, how much can I trust it? And in that moment, this van drove past me that said clear channel, and not only did it drive past me, it went up the road, turned around and drove past me again. I was like, all right, I see you. And then as I turned the corner, it had stopped at a bus stop and waited for me to walk past, and the driver had got out and smiled at me, and I said hello. It was so clear and so synchronistic that, yes, we can dismiss it, but the feeling that I had inside was that confirmation of, yes, I can trust who I am. I can trust how I serve. It was exactly the message that I needed to appear. And I think that that's more of the point, that we can be discerning. We can understand that not everything is a sign, and that the world is a giant tarot deck, and that there are moments of micro mysticism. There's things that might be a coincidence, and also they go beyond coincidence. And so I wonder what happens for you, dear listener, if you spent the next 7 days until this next episode of Mystic in Training podcast, just with that curiosity, just thinking, I wonder if I am in communication with the universe, and be present and just notice. And when something comes into your field that just gives you that sense of, could it be? Or gives you those goosebumps, or that sense of openness, or that sense of aliveness, or that sense of like heart opening. If instead of dismissing it or trying to analyze it, we just said thank you. And we just asked if there was a message for me, thank you for revealing it to me. And just walked with that, not forcing it, but just noticing, if life was in constant conversation with me, what would I notice? And I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear what your moments of micro mysticism are. The feather, the bird, the song on the radio, the dream, the phone call, whatever it is. I'd love to know. Hit reply. Or if you'd like to read the full essay that I wrote, you will find it on my Substack. I will put the links below. And let's be in conversation about conversations with the universe. And I will see you next time on the Mystic in Training podcast. Bye for now.